The crystal chamber floated in the darkness of space like a jewel suspended in black velvet. Inside, thousands of alien beings sat in rows that stretched up toward the domed ceiling. Their bodies came in every shape imaginable. Some had scales, others had fur, and some glowed with their own light. They all watched the center platform where the humans stood. Ambassador Do-hyun stood perfectly still in his dark blue uniform. His hands rested at his sides, but his mind raced. 3 weeks. They had spent 3 weeks in this chamber, talking and negotiating. 3 weeks of trying to make the Vraxian coalition understand that humanity deserved respect. 3 weeks of getting nowhere. Behind him stood Admiral Sora, her military uniform crisp and decorated with medals from a dozen battles. She kept her face calm, but Do-hyun knew her well enough to see the anger in her eyes. Next to her was Counselor Mirai, the youngest member of their delegation. She still believed they could find peace through words. Do-hyun had believed that too once, 3 weeks ago. Across from them sat Chancellor Hyunsik of the Vraxian coalition. His species looked almost human, but his skin shimmered with a faint purple glow. He wore robes that marked him as the leader of 7 powerful alien races. Those 7 races controlled most of this part of the galaxy. They had technology that humanity was still trying to understand. They had weapons that could turn planets into dust. And they wanted humanity to bow down and obey. The Chancellor stood and raised one hand. The chamber fell silent. His voice carried to every corner without any need for speakers. That was just another reminder of how advanced his people were. Humans, he said, and the word sounded like an insult in his mouth. We have been patient with you, more patient than you deserve. We have listened to your complaints and your demands. Now it is time for you to listen to ours. Do-hyun felt his jaw tighten, but he said nothing. Let the Chancellor speak. Let him show everyone here exactly what kind of peace he was offering. These are our terms, the Chancellor continued. You will surrender control of 80% of your colonial worlds to Vraxian oversight. You will submit all military operations to our approval before taking any action. You will pay annual tribute to the coalition, resources, technology, and anything else we require. These terms are final. You have 1 hour to accept them. The chamber erupted in whispers. Some of the alien species seemed shocked. Others nodded their approval. But none of them spoke up against it. They were all too afraid of the Vraxian coalition to say anything. Do-hyun looked at Admiral Sora. She gave him the smallest nod. They had talked about this possibility. They had prepared for it. He turned back to the Chancellor. May I speak? Do-hyun asked, his voice steady and calm. The Chancellor waved his hand as if granting a favor to a child. Speak quickly. The hour has already begun. Do-hyun walked to the edge of the platform. He looked out at all the assembled species. He saw fear in many of their eyes. Fear of the Vraxian coalition. Fear of war. Fear of standing up for what was right. Humanity has been in space for 2 centuries, Do-hyun began. We know we are young compared to most of you. We know our technology is still developing. We know we have much to learn. He paused and let his words sink in. But we also know something else. We know what it means to be free. The Chancellor laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Freedom? You speak of freedom? You are primitives who barely understand how to travel between stars. You have nothing we need except your obedience. Then you do not need us at all, Do-hyun said simply. The whispers in the chamber grew louder. The Chancellor's smile faded. What did you say? Do-hyun straightened his shoulders. This was it. The moment that would change everything. I said you do not need us, and we do not need this council. We came here hoping to find equals who would treat us with respect. Instead, we found a bully who wants slaves, so we are leaving. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The entire chamber seemed frozen in shock. Then the Chancellor started laughing again. This time other Vraxians joined him. The sound echoed through the crystal walls. You are leaving? You think you can just walk away from the Galactic Council, from the Vraxian coalition? You have no idea what you are doing. I know exactly what I am doing, Do-hyun replied. He turned to his delegation. Admiral, Counselor, we are finished here. Admiral Sora stepped forward without hesitation. Counselor Mirai looked uncertain, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. But she followed too. The 3 humans walked toward the exit together. Stop. The Chancellor's voice cracked like a whip. If you walk out of this chamber, you walk into war. The coalition will not allow such disrespect. We will take what we want from you by force. Your colonies will burn. Your ships will be destroyed. Your pathetic little species will learn what happens when you defy us. Do-hyun stopped at the doorway. He looked back one last time. The Chancellor stood there, surrounded by his supporters, confident in his power. The other species in the chamber looked away, unwilling to meet Do-hyun's eyes. They were all afraid, all of them except one. Humanity survived ice ages that froze our world, Do-hyun said quietly. We survived plagues that killed millions. We survived wars that nearly destroyed us. We clawed our way out of caves and built cities. We fought gravity itself to reach the stars. Do you really think we will bow to you just because you threaten us? He did not wait for an answer. He walked through the doorway and his fellow humans followed. Behind them, the chamber exploded with noise. Aliens shouting, the Chancellor screaming orders. But the humans did not look back. Their ship waited in the docking bay, a small craft compared to the massive Vraxian vessels around it. But it was fast and it was theirs. Admiral Sora took the pilot seat while Do-hyun and Mirai strapped in behind her. Are we really doing this? Mirai asked, her voice shaking. Are we really going to war? They made that choice, not us, Admiral Sora said as she fired up the engines. We gave them every chance for peace. Do-hyun looked out the window as they pulled away from the crystal chamber. It grew smaller and smaller until it was just a bright point of light in the darkness. Somewhere in that light, the Chancellor was probably still raging. Let him rage. Words would not save him from what was coming. Send the signal, Do-hyun said. Protocol Omega, all colonies, all ships. Tell them it has begun. Admiral Sora's fingers moved across her controls. A single encrypted message shot out into space, traveling faster than light toward every human world. 3 simple words that would change everything. The talks had failed. Now humanity would show the galaxy what it meant to threaten Earth's children. The Vraxian coalition wanted war. They would get one. But it would not be the easy conquest they expected. Humanity had learned long ago that the most dangerous prey was the kind that fought back. And humans had been fighting for survival since before they could even speak. The message reached Earth's military command center within hours. General Ji-won stood in the war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing all 15 human colonies scattered across the stars. Each one glowed like a small blue light in the darkness. Each one was now in danger. Protocol Omega confirmed, an officer called out. All colonies acknowledge. They are going dark in 10 minutes, Ji-won nodded. She had helped write Protocol Omega 15 years ago, back when humanity first realized they might face this situation. Everyone had hoped they would never need it. But hope was not a strategy. Preparation was. What about civilian ships? Asked a young captain at the communication station. Already being recalled, Ji-won replied. Every human vessel in neutral or alien space has been ordered home. Merchant ships, research vessels, everything. If it flies a human flag, it needs to disappear from galactic sensors within the next 6 hours. One by one, the blue lights on the display started winking out. The colonies were not actually gone. They were still there, still full of people living their lives. But to anyone watching from outside, it would look like humanity had simply vanished. No radio signals, no ship traffic, no electronic signatures of any kind. Just silence. Admiral Sora arrived at the command center 2 hours later. She had flown straight from the peace talks at maximum speed. Her uniform still looked perfect, but her eyes showed how tired she was. Status report, she said, not wasting time with pleasantries. Ji-won pulled up a new display. All colonies are dark. Civilian evacuation is ahead of schedule. We had drills every 6 months, so people knew what to do. The underground cities are at full capacity. Decoy structures on the surface are active and ready. And the fleet? Sora asked. 200 ships ready for combat. Cruiser rested and supplied. But Admiral, 200 against 3,000. Ji-won let the sentence hang in the air. Sora smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Numbers only matter if you fight the way they expect. We will not give them that satisfaction. Where is Dr. Taehyun? In the research lab. He said you would want to see him. The research facility was 3 levels below the command center, buried deep under a mountain. Dr. Taehyun looked up when Sora entered. His gray hair stuck out in every direction, and his lab coat had coffee stains on it. He had probably been awake for 2 days straight, but his eyes were bright with excitement. Admiral, perfect timing. I have something to show you. He gestured at a small device sitting on his workbench. It looked like a black cube about the size of a fist with strange patterns glowing on its surface. What am I looking at? Sora asked. Quantum displacement drive. Generation 4. We have been working on it for 20 years in secret. Taehyun picked up the cube carefully. Vraxians use hyperspace lanes to travel between stars. Predictable routes that everyone knows about. But this lets us jump anywhere, no lanes. No predictable patterns. We can appear behind enemy lines, strike, and vanish before they know what hit them. Sora felt her heart beat faster. How many ships have these? All of them. We have been installing them for the past 5 years. Every human warship, every patrol craft, every military vessel. The Vraxians have no idea. Show me what else you have been hiding, Sora said. For the next hour, Taehyun walked her through humanity's secret weapons. Railguns that could fire tungsten rods at nearly the speed of light. Tactical artificial intelligence that could predict enemy movements 3 steps ahead. Cloaking systems that bent light around ships, making them invisible. Asteroid mining stations that doubled as weapons factories. We have been preparing for this for decades, Taehyun explained. Ever since we met our first hostile alien species, we smiled and traded with the galaxy. But we never forgot that the universe is dangerous. We never stopped preparing. Meanwhile, on the colony world of Kepler 442, Colonel Hana supervised the final evacuations. The planet's main city sat on the surface, its towers gleaming in the sunlight. But it was empty now. A shell. A target meant to draw enemy fire away from the real city 5 kilometers underground. Last transport is away, her second-in-command reported. All civilians are in the shelters. Defense grid is online. Hana looked at the screen showing the planet's orbital space. It looked empty. No satellites. No defenses, nothing, but that was an illusion. Hidden in the asteroid belt circling the planet were hundreds of weapons platforms. Each one could launch rocks at incredible speeds. Each one was controlled by AI systems that never got tired and never missed. When they come, Hana said quietly, they will expect us to be afraid. They will expect us to surrender or run. Show them what humans do when someone threatens our homes. Far away in Vraxian space, Commander Sunho addressed his fleet. 3,000 warships floated in formation, their hulls gleaming with weapons and armor. They were the pride of the coalition, the largest military force ever assembled for a single campaign. The humans have chosen war, Sunho announced. They have chosen poorly. Our sensors show their colonies have gone silent. They are hiding like frightened children. This campaign will be swift and decisive. We will crush their defenses, occupy their worlds, and show the entire galaxy what happens when primitives defy the coalition. The other commanders cheered. They had studied human ships and technology. Humans were 2 centuries old in space. The Vraxians had been traveling the stars for 10,000 years. This would not be a war. It would be a lesson. Intelligence estimates the human fleet at 200 ships, Sunho continued. We have 3,000. We outnumber them 15 to 1. This will be over in 3 months, perhaps less. But Sunho made a mistake that military commanders throughout history had made before him. He assumed that technology and numbers were all that mattered. He did not account for desperation. He did not account for creativity. He did not account for what happens when you corner a species that has spent its entire existence fighting to survive. Back on Earth, Captain Youngmi gathered her special operations team. 15 men and women, all veterans of dangerous missions behind enemy lines. They wore black armor with no insignia, no markings that would identify them as human. Our job is intelligence gathering, Youngmi told them. We slip into Vraxian space, find their supply depots and shipyards, and report back. We do not engage unless absolutely necessary. We are ghosts. They should never know we were there, her team nodded. They had trained for years for missions exactly like this. Small ships with quantum drives would carry them deep into enemy territory. They would gather the information Admiral Sora needed to plan her counterattack. The galaxy grew quiet as humanity disappeared from sight. Trade routes that once carried human goods sat empty. Diplomatic channels that once buzzed with human voices went silent. To the outside observer, it looked like humanity had retreated in fear. But silence was not surrender. Silence was preparation. In shipyards hidden in asteroid fields, workers loaded weapons onto warships. In training facilities buried on moons, soldiers practiced tactics that no alien force had ever seen. In research labs scattered across human space, scientists activated weapons that had been kept secret for decades. Admiral Sora stood in her ready room aboard the flagship Indomitable and looked at the strategic display. Red dots showed where Vraxian forces were gathering. Blue dots showed human defensive positions. The numbers still looked terrible. 3,000 against 200. But Sora smiled anyway. "Let them come," she whispered to the empty room. "Let them think we are weak and afraid. They will learn the truth soon enough." The Vraxian coalition had made a fatal error. They had given humanity time to prepare. They had underestimated a species that had climbed out of the caves to reach the stars through sheer stubbornness and refusal to quit. Now they would pay the price for that mistake. The storm was coming, and it wore a human face. The Vraxian fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, like a school of metal fish breaking the surface of an ocean. 3,000 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could withstand nuclear fire. They were unstoppable, or so Commander Sunho believed. He stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the tactical displays. The human colony world glowed in the center of the screen. Scans showed cities on the surface, but no defensive satellites, no patrol ships, no military presence at all. "They are not even trying to defend themselves," his tactical officer reported. "I detect minimal power signatures. It is possible they have already abandoned the planet." Sunho smiled. This was even easier than he had expected. "Broadcast a surrender demand. Give them 10 minutes to respond. Then we will take the planet by force." The message went out on all frequencies. Sunho expected begging or pleading. Perhaps they would try to negotiate. Humans were good at talking, even when they had nothing to bargain with. But there was no response. Just silence. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Sunho grew impatient. "Advance the fleet. Battle formation. Prepare to engage any resistance." The massive Vraxian warships moved forward, spreading out into a formation that had won 100 battles across the galaxy. Their shields glowed with power. Their weapons charged and ready. They approached the planet slowly, scanning constantly for any sign of danger. They found nothing. "Sir, this does not feel right," the tactical officer said. "Where are their defenses? Where are their ships?" "They have no defenses," Sunho replied. "They have nothing. Continue the advance." Admiral Sora watched from her command chair aboard the Indomitable. Her ship hung in space 5,000 kilometers from the Vraxian fleet, completely invisible to their sensors. Around her, 199 other human warships waited in the same cloaked silence. They had positioned themselves perfectly while the Vraxians were still in hyperspace. "All ships report ready," Lieutenant Minseok said from his tactical station. "Weapons locked. Quantum drives charged for immediate jump if needed." Sora nodded. Everything depended on timing. Let the enemy get close. Let them think they had already won. Then show them how wrong they were. "Distance to planet?" she asked. "Enemy fleet is entering weapons range now," Minseok replied. "Perfect." Sora opened a channel to all human ships. "All vessels, drop cloak on my mark. Weapons free. Target command ships first. Show them what happens when you underestimate humanity. Mark." 200 human warships appeared out of nowhere, surrounding the Vraxian fleet like wolves circling prey. For 3 seconds, nobody on the Vraxian ships could believe what their sensors were telling them. Ships should not be able to appear like that. It was impossible. Those 3 seconds of shock cost them dearly. Human railguns opened fire. Tungsten rods accelerated to incredible speeds, too fast for Vraxian shields to fully stop. The rods punched through armor like paper, tearing into engine rooms and weapon systems. Explosions blossomed across the Vraxian formation. Commander Sunho grabbed his command chair as his flagship shook. "What is happening? Where did they come from?" 200 human ships, sir." They were cloaked. "We had no warning." His tactical officer's voice rose in panic. "Return fire! All ships engage!" Sunho shouted. The Vraxian ships tried to respond, but they were designed for massive fleet battles, not close-range brawls. Their weapons were powerful but slow to track fast-moving targets. The human ships darted between them like insects, too quick and too small to hit easily, and the humans fought dirty. They targeted communications arrays, leaving Vraxian ships unable to coordinate. They aimed for engines stranding vessels in space. They used the Vraxians' own ships as cover, forcing them to risk hitting their allies if they fired. Lieutenant Minseok coordinated the tactical AI systems, feeding target data to every human ship instantly. The AI predicted where enemy vessels would be 3 seconds before they got there, making every shot count. It was like fighting against someone who could see the future. Enemy flagship attempting to retreat, Minseok reported. Shall we pursue? Let them go, Sora ordered. Focus on the ships that are still fighting. On the planet's surface, Colonel Hana activated the defense grid. The asteroid belt around Kepler 442 came alive with movement. Hundreds of rocks, each one the size of a building, launched toward the battle. Mass drivers accelerated them to speeds that turned them into kinetic weapons more powerful than any bomb. The asteroids crashed into Vraxian ships that were already damaged and struggling. Hulls crumpled. Shields failed. Ships that had survived 1,000 years of warfare died in seconds, crushed by simple rocks traveling very fast. Commander Sunho watched his fleet fall apart around him. 800 ships gone, another 500 damaged. This was supposed to be easy. This was supposed to be over in 3 months. How are the humans doing this? Sir, we have to retreat, his tactical officer begged. We are being slaughtered. Sunho hated to admit it, but the officer was right. All ships fall back to Rally Point Gamma. Emergency jump now. The remaining Vraxian vessels turned and fled, jumping to hyperspace in a disorganized mob. They left behind debris and bodies and the shattered remains of their confidence. Commander Sunho's flagship jumped last, its hull scarred and smoking. Admiral Sora stood and looked at the tactical display. The battle had lasted 6 hours. Human losses, 23 ships, mostly older destroyers that had bought time for others to position themselves. Vraxian losses, over 800 destroyed, 500 more damaged. Send a message on all coalition frequencies, she ordered. Make sure everyone hears it. Minseok opened the channel. Sora spoke clearly and calmly, her voice carrying across the stars. This is Admiral Sora of the Human Defense Fleet. You came to our home looking for an easy conquest. You found a fight instead. You wanted war. Now you have it. But understand this, we will not fight on your terms. We will not meet you in honorable fleet battles. We will strike from the shadows. We will hit you where you are weakest. We will make you afraid to sleep at night. This is your only warning. Leave human space now, or we will teach you what it means to fight a species that has been at war with itself for 10,000 years. The message ended. Silence filled the bridge of the Indomitable. Then one of the crew members started clapping. Others joined in. Soon the entire bridge erupted in cheers, but Sora did not celebrate. This was just the first battle. The Vraxians still had over 2,000 ships. They would come back probably angrier and more cautious. The real war was just beginning. Still, they had proven something important today. Humanity could fight back. Humanity could win. And most importantly, humanity would not surrender, not now, not ever. 3 months passed. 3 months of war that the Vraxian coalition had never expected. They launched 4 more major attacks on human colonies. Each one ended the same way. Ambushes, traps, and devastating losses. The mighty coalition fleet was bleeding ships faster than their shipyards could replace them. Captain Youngmi and her special operations team had become ghosts in Vraxian space. They moved through enemy territory like shadows, striking supply depots and shipyards when no one was looking. A weapons factory would explode in the night. A supply convoy would vanish without a trace. The Vraxians never saw them coming and never caught them leaving. Youngmi stood on the bridge of her stealth ship, watching a Vraxian repair station through her view screen. It sat in orbit around a gas giant, a massive structure where damaged warships came to be fixed. Dozens of vessels floated around it waiting their turn. That is a lot of ships, her second-in-command whispered. That is a lot of targets, Youngmi corrected. She checked her tactical display. Place the charges on the station's main reactor. Set them for a 2-hour delay. We will be long gone before they explode. Her team moved silently through space in powered armor, invisible to Vraxian sensors. They attached explosive devices to critical systems and disappeared back to their ship. 2 hours later, the repair station tore itself apart in a chain reaction that destroyed 8 warships and damaged 30 more. By the time Vraxian investigators arrived, Youngmi was 3 star systems away, planning her next strike. But the most shocking moment came when Dr. Taehyun deployed his latest creation. He called it the Helios Protocol. On every human colony world, massive satellites had been placed in orbit around the system's star. The Vraxians had seen them on their scans but assumed they were power collectors or research stations. They were wrong. When a Vraxian battle station moved to attack the human colony in the Ross 128 system, Taehyun activated the satellites. They focused the star's energy into concentrated beams of pure solar radiation. The beams struck the battle station with the power of a small sun. Shields meant to withstand nuclear weapons melted like ice in a furnace. The station's armor vaporized. In 30 seconds, it was gone. The Vraxian ships nearby turned and fled without firing a single shot. "We have been holding back," Taehyun explained to Admiral Sora during a secure communication.
Humanity has developed this technology for 30 years.
We could have shared it with the galaxy. But we knew that if we showed our true capabilities too early, someone would try to take them by force. So we hid our achievements. We pretended to be weaker than we were. Now they see what we can really do. The Helios protocol changed everything. 3 more Vraxian battle stations fell to focused starlight. The Coalition realized that humanity was not just fighting back. They were fighting with weapons that should not exist. Technology that made even the ancient Vraxian science look primitive by comparison. Fear spread through the Coalition like a disease. In the Coalition council chambers, Chancellor Hyunsik faced angry representatives from all 7 member species. They stood around him, their voices raised in fury and accusation. "You promised an easy victory," shouted a Talaxian counselor named Jihoon. "You said the humans were weak, primitive. Instead, we have lost thousands of ships and accomplished nothing. Our economy is collapsing," added another representative. "Human privateers have blockaded key trade routes. Our people are starving while we waste resources on your pointless war." Hyunsik tried to maintain his authority. "We need more time. More ships. If we commit everything we have, we can still win." "Win?" Jihoon laughed bitterly. "What would winning even look like? The humans have weapons we cannot defend against. They appear and disappear at will. They strike our supply lines with impunity. Even if we somehow conquered their colonies, they would continue fighting from the shadows forever. You have led us into an unwinnable war, Chancellor." Hyunsik looked around the chamber. He saw no support in any of their faces. The Coalition was fracturing. Species that had stood together for centuries were turning against each other, and it was all because of the humans. Counselor Jihoon stepped forward. "I am withdrawing the Talaxian Cooperative from this conflict. We will no longer support Coalition military operations against humanity. I encourage other species to do the same before we lose everything." One by one, other representatives voiced their agreement. The Coalition was falling apart. Meanwhile, Ambassador Do-hyun received a secret communication from Counselor Jihoon. They met on a neutral station, far from any military presence. Jihoon looked tired and old despite his species' naturally long lifespan. "You have proven your point," Jihoon said quietly. "The entire galaxy knows now that humanity cannot be conquered. But continuing this war will destroy both our peoples. The Talaxian Cooperative wishes to discuss peace. Real peace. Not the insulting terms that Chancellor Hyunsik offered before." Do-hyun considered this carefully. "Why should we trust the Coalition now? You stood by and said nothing when your Chancellor demanded our surrender." "Because we were wrong," Jihoon admitted. "We were afraid of the Coalition's power. We did not think anyone could stand against them. But you did. You showed us that bullies can be defeated. Now many of us want to make things right." "What about the Chancellor?" Do-hyun asked. "He has lost support. The Coalition is voting to remove him from power. A new leader will be chosen, someone who understands that cooperation is better than conquest." Do-hyun contacted Admiral Sora and relayed the conversation. They discussed it for hours, weighing the risks. Finally, Sora gave her opinion. "We can win this war," she said. "But winning a war and building a lasting peace are different things. If we destroy the Coalition completely, someone worse might take their place. Better to accept their surrender while we have the advantage. But we negotiate from strength this time. No compromises. No backing down," Do-hyun agreed. He sent word back to Jihoon that humanity would consider peace talks, but only under specific conditions. The talks would be held in neutral territory. All Coalition forces would withdraw from human space immediately. And humanity would have a seat at the negotiating table as an equal power, not as a conquered species begging for mercy. To Do-hyun's surprise, the Coalition agreed to all their terms. The Galactic Council, which had remained carefully neutral throughout the conflict, finally intervened. High Arbiter Seo-jun sent formal invitations to both sides. The message was clear. Return to the negotiating table, or the Council would impose economic sanctions that would cripple both the Coalition and humanity. But everyone knew the truth. The Council was not threatening both sides equally. They were threatening the coalition, because humanity had already proven they could survive alone if they needed to. 6 months after walking out of the first peace talks, Ambassador Do-hyun prepared to return to the Crystal Chamber. But this time things would be very different. This time the Vraxian coalition would be the ones begging for peace. Admiral Sora would accompany him as a reminder of what humanity could do if negotiations failed. And this time, when they entered that chamber, every species in the galaxy would stand when the humans arrived. Respect was not given. It was earned. And humanity had earned it in blood and fire across a dozen star systems. Now it was time to see if the galaxy had learned its lesson. The crystal chamber looked the same as it had 6 months ago, but everything else had changed. The thousands of assembled species still filled the rows stretching toward the ceiling. The same domed architecture still caught and reflected the light from distant stars, but the atmosphere was completely different. There was no laughter now. No dismissive whispers. When Ambassador Do-hyun entered the chamber with Admiral Sora at his side, the assembled beings rose from their seats. Not because protocol demanded it, because respect demanded it. Do-hyun walked to the central platform with his head high. His uniform was the same dark blue he had worn before. But the man wearing it had changed. 6 months of war had aged him. Lines around his eyes spoke of sleepless nights and hard decisions. But there was also a certainty in his bearing that had not been there before. He knew humanity's strength now. He had seen it proven in battle. Admiral Sora stood beside him in her military uniform. She did not need to say anything. Her presence alone reminded everyone what would happen if these talks failed. Behind them stood Counselor Mireille, no longer the junior delegate. She had proven herself during the war, coordinating relief efforts and diplomatic outreach to neutral species. Now she stood as a full representative of humanity. Across the platform sat what remained of the coalition leadership. Chancellor Hyunsik was gone, removed from power by his own people. In his place sat Premier Ji-young, a moderate leader who had opposed the war from the beginning. She looked at the humans with cautious respect, not arrogance. High Arbiter Seojin stood to open the proceedings. He was ancient even by galactic standards, his species having traveled the stars for 50,000 years. He had seen wars come and go like seasons, but even he seemed troubled by what had happened. "We gather here today to repair what should never have been broken," Seojin began. His voice filled the chamber without effort. 6 months ago, pride and arrogance led to conflict. Thousands died. Countless resources were wasted. Trust between species was damaged. The Galactic Council failed to prevent this tragedy, and for that we take responsibility. He turned to look at the coalition representatives. The Vraxian coalition's actions destabilized this entire sector. Their aggression violated the principles upon which this council was founded. If similar behavior occurs again, the council will not remain neutral. Economic sanctions will be imposed that will cripple any aggressor's ability to function in galactic society. Premier Ji-young bowed her head slightly. Acknowledging the rebuke, Seojun then turned to the humans. "Ambassador Do-hyun, the council invites humanity to present its terms for peace." Do-hyun stepped forward. He had spent weeks preparing this moment. Every word had been chosen carefully. Every demand had been calculated. But now, standing before the assembled galaxy, he spoke simply and directly. "Humanity seeks 3 things," he began. "First, recognition of all human territorial claims. Our 15 colony worlds and the space surrounding them are sovereign human territory. No foreign military forces may enter without explicit permission." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. This was reasonable. This was fair. Second, fair trade agreements with all interested parties. No preferential treatment. No special privileges. Just honest commerce between equals. More nods. Still reasonable. Third, reparations for damaged human vessels and infrastructure. The coalition started this war. They will help pay to repair the damage it caused. Premier Ji-young stood. "The coalition accepts these terms. We will provide full reparations as requested," Do-hyun nodded. "There is one more thing. Humanity requests a permanent seat on the Galactic Council, with full voting rights and equal status to all other member species." This caused more reaction. Some species looked surprised. Others nodded as if they had expected it. High Arbiter Seojun smiled slightly. "The Council will vote on this matter," Seojun said. He looked around the chamber. All in favor of granting humanity a permanent seat with full rights? Hands, tentacles, appendages of every kind rose into the air. The vote was not quite unanimous, but it was close. Only a handful of species abstained and none voted against. The motion passes, Seojin declared. Humanity is granted a permanent seat on the Galactic Council. Counselor Mireille stepped forward then. She had prepared the next part herself. Humanity also wishes to share some of our defensive technology with smaller species who face threats from pirates and raiders. We know what it is like to be vulnerable. We want to help others protect themselves. This caused surprised whispers throughout the chamber. Species that had watched the war from the sidelines had seen what human weapons could do. Many had assumed humanity would hoard that technology, use it to build an empire. Instead, humanity was offering to share it. Counselor Jihoon of the Talaxian Cooperative stood. I can confirm this. Human military advisors have already helped my people defend against raiders who plagued us for generations. They asked for nothing in return except friendship and fair trade. Other species confirmed similar experiences. During the war, humanity had quietly been helping anyone who asked. Not to buy allies, not to build debts, simply because it was the right thing to do. Premier Ji-young stood again. On behalf of the Vraxian Coalition, I formally apologize for the actions that led to this conflict. We underestimated humanity. We treated them with disrespect. We threatened their homes and their freedom. We were wrong. The Coalition has learned from this mistake. We seek not dominance, but partnership. We hope humanity can forgive us in time. Do-hyun looked at her for a long moment. He thought about the ships that had been destroyed, the lives that had been lost, the fear his people had endured. Forgiveness would not come easily, but it could come eventually. Humanity accepts your apology, he said finally. We hope to build a better relationship with the Coalition in the future, one based on mutual respect. High Arbiter Seojin stepped forward with the treaty document. It was made of some material that would last for centuries, inscribed with the terms they had agreed upon. Premier Ji-young signed first. Then Ambassador Do-hyun added his signature beside hers. The war was over. Peace had returned, but it was a different kind of peace than before. This time, humanity had not been forced to accept unfair terms. This time, they stood as equals. As the ceremony concluded, Admiral Sora leaned close to Do-hyun. They respect us now, but do they understand us? Do-hyun looked around the chamber at all the assembled species. They understand enough. They understand that humanity will always choose to stand rather than kneel. They understand that threatening us was a mistake. That is enough for now. High Arbiter Seojin made one final announcement. The Galactic Council recognizes that we made a mistake 6 months ago. We failed to see humanity's true potential. We allowed arrogance to cloud our judgment. Therefore, I propose that humanity not only join the Council, but join as one of the great powers, with influence equal to the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. This caused shocked silence. Being a great power meant more than just having a vote. It meant having real authority to shape galactic policy. It meant being recognized as a civilization that had proven itself worthy of leadership. The vote passed with only slightly more debate than before. Humanity had not just won a seat at the table. They had earned a place at its head. As the human delegation left the crystal chamber, Mireille looked back one last time. Do you think they will try this again? With us or with someone else? Do-hyun shook his head. Not for a long time. We taught them a lesson they will not forget. Bully the weak and someone might surprise you. Someone might fight back. Someone might win. Admiral Sora smiled. And if they do forget, we will be ready to remind them. They boarded their ship and set course for Earth. Behind them, the galaxy began the slow process of healing. Trade routes reopened. Diplomatic channels buzzed with activity. The Coalition started reforming itself into something better, something more fair. But on every human colony, the defense grids remained active. The fleet continued its patrols. Dr. Taehyun's research division kept developing new technologies, because humanity had learned something important from this experience. Peace was not the absence of strength. Peace was strength so evident that no one dared to disturb it. Humanity had that strength now. They had proven it, and they would never let it fade. Years later, when new species joined the Galactic Council, they would see a plaque near the entrance. It bore a quote from the first human ambassador, words spoken during those failed peace talks that started everything. The plaque read, "Humanity survived ice ages, world wars, and our own worst instincts. We did not claw our way out of the gravity well just to bow to tyrants among the stars. It served as a reminder, a warning, a promise. The galaxy had underestimated the species from Sol 3 once. They would not make that mistake again. And far away on Earth, in parks and schools and homes, human children played under blue skies. They did not know about the war that had been fought to protect them. They did not understand the sacrifices that had been made. But they lived free, and that was what mattered. That was what humanity had always fought for. Not conquest, not empire, just the freedom to live their lives on their own terms. And now finally the rest of the galaxy understood that too.